give you guys an insight into what we're doing, what you guys can look forward to, and some of the things that we might look to do in the future. The next move was obviously a platform where we can do more of the stuff that we're doing. The platform is going to be an extension of what we're currently doing, except we're going to start to add more education in.
Start to do more deep dives into actual companies, so then that way people can sort of have an understanding of how to actually assess whether a company is a good investment or if it's a bad investment.
Let's just go and see the world and just show them what it really means to live life golden. Yeah, we're golden, baby girl, we're golden. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the startup podcast. You guys have obviously been listening to this quite a bit, but this is our first iteration where we haven't had a guest on. And what I'm calling this episode, we're making up as we go, but it's inside Pivotal Media, and we wanted to. I think it's cool to have conversations, especially with what some of the things that we are doing, and how we're seeing the space as it relates to business and some of the opportunities that we're trying to take. But give you guys an insight into what we're doing, what you guys can look forward to, and some of the things that we might look to do in the future, and really start to document that journey, the journey that we're going on. Because this started off as just a podcast that we started, but very quickly it's turning into something that we're really enjoying. But there's also some opportunities out there and some things that we're really looking to do. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss, I'm with Brado, by the way, so my man.
Hey guys.
And we're with Disco, Disco Johnny. He still doesn't know why I call him that, but
check 1, 2.
That's why we call him it. But what's up next for us, and something that we're actually working on at the moment is a platform for everybody. And as I said early on, we kind of started to think about, okay, well, what do we do with this? What's like we're getting some traction and we're loving the conversations that we're having, but what do we really see as the utility on the back end, and how can we extend what we're currently doing? And what does that actually start to look like in 1 year and in 5 years? And I think the biggest catalyst for me, I don't know about you, but has been the fact that I just love talking about everything that we're talking about. You know what I mean? Like,
just try to create as much value as we possibly can, because unless you are like researching the stuff that we research every day, you're just not going to know. And so, yeah, if we can sort of relay everything that we've acquired in terms of knowledge, that's just a value add for everybody.
Yeah, and that, the smart move for us, the next move was obviously a platform where we can do more of the stuff that we're doing. We've got the infrastructure here that we've invested in, and the equipment and the people as well, where we can do more media, and it's a no-brainer for us. So the platform is going to be an extension of what we're currently doing, except we're going to start to add more education in, and I might actually get you to start off with some of the ideas that we've had around the platform and some of the things that we're implementing around the investors section, because there is going to be two sections initially. There's going to be the investors section, and there's definitely going to be the business section as well. And the thing I actually really love about it is that we haven't said that they need to mirror each other. We haven't actually said that this needs to be like this and we need to have the same thing on both sides. It's we're both kind of treating it as our own little projects. So I'll get you to explain a little bit about the stuff that you're looking at doing.
Yeah, so the things that we wanted to try and incorporate from the investors side is we want to start to do more deep dives into actual companies, so then that way people can sort of have an understanding of how to actually assess whether a company is a good investment or if it's a bad investment. And so the only way to do that really is to just take a section of companies and actually do a deep dive into each one of them to sort of address what the financials are, what the foundation team is doing, and basically like analyze their business model to the point where you can truly understand that business and then make a sound investment decision based on that analysis. So we're going to start to incorporate something like that, and then we're also going to start doing some masterclasses as well. So actually trying to do a more in-depth deep dive into what your investment strategy might be, and all the different investment decisions that you can make. And so we want to sort of try to come up with some sort of masterclass around how you can invest and all the different decisions that have to go into those sort of processes as well. So that's what we want to incorporate from the investor side at this point.
Yeah, and that's only the very beginning, right? Like, so one thing that, you're like, in terms of one thing that we're going to be adding in as well is, like, obviously you're going to be doing regular market updates and we talk about news on the Investors podcast now, but it's going to be another layer to that. It's going to be deeper. It's going to be more comprehensive. It's, we're really going to start to talk about potentially, and really kind of break down all the news that's happening and different, assets as investments and stuff like that as well.
Well, it's important from a sort of macro perspective that, say, like you look at Apple, for example, if one thing that you wouldn't really consider with Apple is if there's a downturn in the Chinese economy, what sort of impact that'll have on Apple. But Apple has 30% of their revenue from the Chinese market. So it's like we'll be able to address those sort of concerns on a weekly basis, and then that will allow you to have a bigger picture on what's actually happening in the market and how it could potentially impact the companies that you own as well. So that's why it's important to sort of have that sort of macro outlook, because anything that happens in the macro affects the companies that we invest in day to day.
100%. And I mean, from a business perspective, one of the things that I am really passionate about right now, and the reason that we're actually doing this is more so around the fact that, I was writing this today when I was doing some work in the background, and, we really have a firm belief that the way the economy is going and the way that the technologies are emerging at the moment, that it's going to mean a lot more people have side hustles, a lot more people, are going to be looking at leveraging their skills as a business owner. And a lot of people shake their head at that. They're like, I think we put up a TikTok where I said 70% and we got a lot of hate on that. But what we mean by that is that it's not that everyone is going to be a business owner. That is the point. It's the fact that the way people see work will change, right? So think about it. And the difference is, for me, is that, like, instead of getting paid for the hours that you put into a company, you actually get paid for the work you get put into the company. And that's what really crypto Web3 is actually doing. It's the proof of work model, which not a lot of people understand yet. But instead of, think about if you're a really highly talented individual and you're really efficient with your work, why would you work for one company and get paid in relation to the hours you put into that company when you could work for 4 and get paid for the actual work you do based on, obviously the work getting done, but what does that work go on to actually do, and what kind of piece of that company should that get you? And that's really, where, we believe that the economy's going and the workforce side of things is going. And a big part of that is, all of a sudden now you're going to have to understand how to take your idea from 0 to 1. And that's going to be a rate limiter on how much you can get ahead in life, really. So, and that's something we've identified for a while now. So the business side of it is, how do you take your idea from 0 to 1? So,
and also building something that is more time dependent, obviously, to the point where it's less time dependent on you, because then everything is working in your favor, as opposed to then you just working time in the business and then having those sort of limitations on you as well.
Yeah, and
because you have to sort of distinguish being self-employed to being a business owner, and a lot of people sort of they find it hard to make that shift over to the next stage.
Yeah, 100%. So, and that's kind of what that saying 0 to 1 means, right? It's like get this thing functioning.
Yeah.
From so that if you're someone who simply has an idea, you'll be able to come into the platform and really kind of learn the fundamental frameworks that'll help you start to turn that idea into, first of all, something that just generates revenue, and then how do we take it further than that and get this to turn into a functioning business. So that's something that we're really excited. So, things that I'm incorporating is an education library that basically covers, nearly every sector or segment of your business, and kind of teaches you different framework strategies and case studies within those particular sections as well. As well as, I really like the idea, and something that we're doing on the Startup Podcast now is sharing people's stories. But a part of me goes like, imagine imagine you could see what they were doing, and imagine, you could see behind the scenes to what they were doing and how beneficial that would be, not only from the standpoint of actually taking the learnings that you have and turning them into action and understanding how to turn them into action, but also inspiration. Like, a big part of business is resilience, so when you see someone else who's been in your position, who is doing it, and you see the day-to-day, you see the stuff that you don't usually see.
People only see the end result, don't they?
Yeah.
People only see the Facebooks where they become billionaires and all this sort of thing, but they don't see the early days where it's just hard work and you don't really know if it's going to take off, or like, you're just taking on so much risk, but you're obviously doing it because you have an idea and you want to sort of shift and create this new paradigm. And so this is what we're sort of trying to uncover for people, is to actually show you what actually happens day to day, because it's not easy. It's bloody hard. But yeah, we want to try to use that to sort of educate people and then also give them that inspiration to go out and try it themselves.
Yeah, 100%. So, like, I'm in talks at the moment with certain people, but also got some ideas around having, content creators come on board, vloggers, who kind of vlog their journey through business within different sectors. And that'll be some of the content that we do. We're both going to have exclusive interviews with people that we're going to be able to do with people all around the world within different sectors as well. And we're going to have a virtual setup where we can do, Q&A sessions, and we're drawing diagrams and these kind of things. And this is basically going to be, what we're trying to, this is going to be the platform where you can come in and you can kind of learn, and you can go deeper than what we go on the podcast, because the podcast, we try to bring as much value to this as we can, but, in reality, there's only so much you can go into, like there's, you've been in business and an investor for, how long now? The hours that you put in can still to this day, the hours I put into business and dip my toes into investing at the moment, but more so business, is like, it's very hard to cover that in a 40-minute episode.
Yeah.
So this is going to be our iteration of that, and kind of going deeper, and trying to create something that isn't like anything out there, that really helps you guys really get ahead in life. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff out there for people within particular fields that's really high level, right? But we feel that not enough of this stuff gets taught to the everyday person, and it's not accessible to them.
Yeah, you've got to open up your eyes to what's really going on. And then once you sort of have those keys, then you can take it off for you, That's what we really want to just, especially from the investor side of thing, we want to open people's eyes up to shifting from being a consumer to being an owner. Because the sooner you become an owner, that's your journey to becoming wealthy.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, like the old system, right? Like the old system and kind of how things used to be done, was all about, it's about having a job and buying your first home and these kind of things. But really, that's not how you get ahead. Like, anyone who gets ahead, they've either had a really good high-paying job, and then they've learned how to invest their money well, or they've owned a business, built a lot of wealth that way, and then they get the money invested for them, or they invest that money themselves.
Yeah.
And I think, we're going to start to see a shift. Right, and I was listening to someone talk the other day, and it really put things into perspective. What Web3 does, and what that space does for people, is it takes you from a place of, and I honestly thought this about wealth, right? Like, wealth takes you from this point where you work because you have to put food on the table for your family and for the people and for yourself, and you do it because you have to. Mm-hmm. To a point where you can do what you love to do and do more of what you love to do.
But most people fall into the trap of they'll bring home their income and that sort of thing. They'll pay their bills and all that sort of thing. And then because they've put in all this hard work, then they want to reward themselves. So they go out and then they buy a new pair of Nike sneakers or a handbag or something like that. And instead of, like, this is where I sort of, I'm so passionate, because as soon as you start to realize that instead of buying your Nike sneakers, You go out and buy the Nike stock. Now all of a sudden you're an owner in that company, which is then putting more and more money in your pocket. You know, the sooner you make that transition, the better off you're going to be. And the sooner, like, you'll start off putting only $25 in, then the following you might put in 50, and then it just slowly build up and up and up, because you're starting to realize that your wealth is actually growing this way, as opposed to just doing it hard and living week to week. Because that's not how we're meant to live life. Like, you got to enjoy it, you know. And the sooner you take a handle on, especially your finances, the whole world opens up to you.
And think about from a business perspective, right? Like what we just talked about, like the ability for you now to leverage your skills and your passion and directly monetize it. You know, that's what Web3 brings. That's what, you know,
and all those intangibles that we couldn't value, we can now
exactly, right? So you can directly monetize your brand, whereas previously brand was this big powerful asset that created revenue for you, but you couldn't directly monetize the brand, whereas now you can directly monetize the brand. So building a personal brand, you know, like the example is John, who's great at content creation, right? Has a brand that now he can directly monetize, instead of the only way he can monetize is through service, right? So that's the easiest way to think about it. And it's like now, you know, like how many people couldn't do what they loved because they couldn't, there was a lack of monetization strategies out there that now can do more of what they love because they can now monetize it, you know, a lot more effectively. Right. And that's what it means for me, is like the skills you're going to need to be able to do that is business acumen. You're going to need it now, you know. And you know, the beauty of it is all you're going to need to surround yourself with people that can kind of help you, and that's a part of the network as well. And you know, that's kind of like what a big part of this is for us, is like the world is fucking changing, right? Like the world is changing. Currently we are in a revolution. We're going from internet 2.0 to the internet 3.0, you know, Web 3. The financial system's starting to shift and change. You know, the way we work is starting.
We've got a financial aid to the internet now, which we didn't have initially.
Yeah, like it's really starting to change, and we're going to see the biggest wealth transfer in history. You know, we're in a situation where, you know, the rich get richer at the moment. If you own property and if you have access to, you know, investments that, you know, are accruing at a massive rate at the moment because the government keeps printing money and all these kind of things, then it's a lot more opportunities come your way, a lot more wealth comes your way.
And it's crazy that people come to us and say, like, what should we invest in? Like, is it like, what house should we buy, or like what stock looks good? The macro trend is crypto. Like, that is where the money is going to be, and you can get in on the ground floor, you know, and the shift is going to be astronomical.
Yeah, and
so we're bloody excited, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think more, you know, like this isn't just a game, you know, like this is the future is changing, and this platform that we're trying to create is going to help you navigate this. The listener navigate this. The everyday person who, you know, maybe is working the 9 to 5, but would really love to start a side hustle. The person who's self-employed, who wants to take that next step and generate wealth. And then once you do generate wealth, or if you've got money sitting there, what do you do with it so that you can start to get ahead in life? And that's really what this platform's going to be about.
Start to play the game the right way.
Yeah, and you know, we talk about it like we know what exactly is going to be on there. Like, and we've got some really like plans that are going to be initial when we launch, which is, you know, not far away, but you know, like this is the opportunities are endless here, and I think that's what excites us the most about this.
And we plan on having it be really engaged as well, so that we're in tune with what the community wants, and then we'll also just be like really open to having any sort of suggestions as well. So
yeah, and that mean, you know, the Discord. Yeah, you know, like the Discord channel, where, you know, that's going to be coming along with it. You know, something that we're really excited about with the actual podcast itself is the free Discord community, right, that we're going to be launching, and that option for you know, all of our listeners, and then, you know, some more private and exclusive channels for, you know, obviously the members of the platform, and incorporating events, around some of the things that they're learning on the platform, as well as, in the podcast that we're having,
Also ownership through a community token as well. Like, we really believe in that. We think that if we can drive value through ownership, that'll then just enhance the experience even more as well. So that's something that we're heavily looking into at the moment too.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that probably takes us to like the next conversation around this is like, some of the things that we're looking at as it relates to the future, and some of the things around business. And, I had an idea. We haven't actually sat down and actually talked about this, right? But we've got a meeting after this. But, I really like the idea of sponsored content creators. DAOs is probably something that the listener might not know too much about, but basically a DAO is a decentralized organization. And the data, the stats, are telling us that these organizations move at the speed of light. They're actually way more effective than a normal organization that has a CEO, that has a director, that has all these kind of this centralization around it. And I really think like the future of what we do here is not around us talking on the podcast. It's around how do we create a community, a large community that creates content that helps the everyday person get ahead in life. And that could be anything. That's the long-term vision. And one thing we're going to look to do is sponsor people to come on and create content. We're going to look for content creators. We're going to look for the next show. We've got investors, we've got startup, but what's the next show? And that's something that we're really excited about. And how that plays out, we're not sure yet. We've got no idea, but we know that that's what the future holds. And you mentioned it, like we're in talks at the moment about NFTs. We had a meeting on Friday about them, and how do we incorporate them into what we do? We look at ownership and involvement as one of the pillars of what we're trying to do. We don't necessarily just want us to be driving the ship. We actually want, you guys, really, the listeners, to be driving the ship and having ownership, but also being able to like
be rewarded for it too.
Yeah, and get involved in the vision and the mission, right? Like I think that's one thing that we're really excited about is, who listens to this that could be a content creator, that could help, create content and solve problems and more, or, have voting rights so that we make sure that, the right decisions are being made for the community. And the right content's being made too. And that's what NFTs can do. We've got ideas around, top 5 episodes and getting, obviously creating artwork, but then putting utility on the back end, like, VIP members that get access to company reporting, voting rights, these kind of things. We're trying to get a token off the ground and figure out the best way to go about that. And we've got some ideas around potentially what we could do there, where people are getting rewarded, not just through owning a token and the token going up, but the utility on the back end. And what that gets them, potentially a payout of some sort, and these kind of things. So that, because we just know that if we do this right, it could be anything. Like why couldn't this be the biggest media network in the world? Why couldn't it be? That's the reality with the way that we're looking at it. And that's the power of social tokens. That's the power of NFTs. Is it's not us just doing this stuff to you guys and then trying to monetize it. It's no, how can you guys monetize it? How can you guys start to earn and be rewarded for getting involved in the community and actually driving the vision forward as well? So
it's such a shift from the way things are currently done, isn't it?
It's crazy, it really is crazy. Like I think about what the potentials are and with NFTs and I just think about like sponsored creators, I think we're probably going to look to sign our first sponsored creator at the start of 2022. Can they start a podcast? They can use all the facilities, start a podcast, and we can help that person build their brand. We can help them launch NFTs. We can reward them with our social token, or a crypto fund. You're going to be fucking registered for this kind of stuff soon. So, who knows, right? So it's crazy to think about what could happen here. And the platform is the very beginning of it. right? Which is
It's only just the start, isn't it?
that's the initial iteration. But we have big ideas for what is actually possible. And we definitely want to incorporate the future. Like, we're not afraid to, like, it's not one of those things where we're like, oh, what if this, what if that? Like, we're already so in it, and we're going to use these futuristic strategies and kind of technologies to help us learn, so we can share these learnings and across our platform and do all of that stuff. But we also think there's massive opportunities there as well. So, just the opportunities are endless, and what we could do with what we're doing now is endless as well. So
100%, yeah.
It's honestly crazy times, but
a lot of work ahead.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, like we wanted to talk about this because we wanted to give you guys an insight into what we're doing and how we're planning to build it out. And there are challenges, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, like this is a part of... It's
never really been done before, so we're sort of innovating as we go. And so I'm also just trying to, like, figure it all out, hey?
Yeah, figure it all out. But like, there's so many challenges, right? Like, it's new. Like, how many companies can we actually go look at and say, that's the model?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't exist.
No.
There's a few out there that we can kind of leverage off and have a think about how it could work. But, there's so many challenges there. There's, like... This is a part of what we do, but it's not everything that we do as well. So there's challenges, in facing us from that perspective. Any type of startup is a fucking challenge because, unless you got funding coming through. So, like how we move forward from here from a monetization side of things and so on is difficult. It's crazy. Like, a startup is just nuts. And I think that's what people, like... I guess that's the side of documenting that that's why we want to have people documenting their journey on the platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like, and we're going to document the journey. Like, this is probably going to be a regular episode. We're probably going to do this once a month where we just talk about all the shit that we're trying to do, the failures that we're going through, the struggles, the things that work, the things that didn't, which is necessary.
It's all part of the process.
Oh, it is. And I think, a startup is really, really hard. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's really, really hard. There's so, working for free. It's ridiculous, capital that has to be invested. That's, like, all of this kind of stuff is a big part of business that nobody sees. If you have an idea that you're passionate about, having business acumen is the key to getting it off the ground, but you still got to be able to work and you still got to be able to take that risk. And the risk is investing time, it's investing money, it's it's all of that stuff, you know what I mean? And it's a journey. It's a fucking journey, man. Like, it's crazy. But that's a big part of it that you don't see, So that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing, and we want to share all of that because that's usually what holds people back, right? Fear is the length and shadow of ignorance. And that's a quote that sticks with me. That's why I think it's important for people to learn this stuff. Like, think about it. What's the one thing you hear about what do people say when it comes to the stock market?
It's too hard.
Too hard. I don't know enough about it. It scares me.
Yeah.
It's the same thing now with Bitcoin. Like, I was having a conversation with someone the other day and I'm like, all this information is laid out in front of you as to why this space is going to be successful. And it's like, I'm too scared. Right. And
you just have to start small. And then small, manageable size pieces, and then eventually it builds up, and you get underway.
Yeah, and I think that's what happens when you can start to accrue some of this knowledge and this understanding and so on. So that's a big part of it. We've got a really cool project coming up, the startup project, which is a big part of what my side of the business and the podcast is becoming, where we're going to be taking people through a 10-week startup journey, helping them launch their product. Documenting the whole thing through podcasts or vlogs from the back end are going to be on the platform as well. So not only seeing other people do it, and that's one thing, but myself taking someone through that, and kind of really going through that journey with somebody and taking you through from
see all the wins and the fails.
The wins, the losses. We don't know if it's going to be successful. We might get to week 10 and we try to launch the product and it's an absolute dud. But more importantly, we're going to try to unpack why it is successful, why it isn't, and show the whole journey. So
you don't see any of that, do you?
you just don't. Like, you really don't. And I think that's a big part of why people don't do it. That's a big part of why it's much easier to just be a pawn in society. It's much easier to just go with the flow. And people actually don't like that. That's what can sometimes make people miserable, because they want more, but they don't have the exposure.
And then we criticize those who have made it, despite not seeing all the hardships that they've gone through too.
Yeah, and it's the exposure to this kind of stuff that usually stops people. That's why people are fearful. It's like, well, what if I lost it all? And it's like, well, I often say this is like, understanding anxiety is the word I use, right? I talk about this in business. Anxiety without an understanding leads to fear. And that's what stops people in their tracks. But anxiety, that's actually the wrong quote. I had to come back with that. But no, it's fear without an understanding leads to anxiety.
Yeah, it's the risk of the unknown.
But fear with an understanding leads to leverage, right? Like, that's the thing is, like, if I don't know what I'm doing and I'm fearful, it leads to anxiety. When we don't know what we're doing in life, or we don't know what the next step is, or we don't know what we're going to do, or how to do what we need to do, we get anxiety. But when we know what we need to do and we understand it and we're fearful, that becomes leverage. That's how we actually start to move forward in life, right? Because, when I know I'm scared about something, but I know what I'm doing and I know how to do it, I start to rub my hands together. That fear is only there for maybe, 10 minutes.
Well, there's the great quote, get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's in that sort of uncomfortable feeling that we actually start to really make progress. And so that's sort of what we're trying to uncover here.
Yeah, and that's what the platform's going to be all about. So however we do that, initially it's going to be through content and how we can do that, educational content, entertaining content, behind the scenes content, all the different types of content. But in the future, who knows how it could happen? It could be events, could be workshops, could be, it could be anything, right? And that's the exciting thing. And more than anything, what we're mostly excited about is the fact that you guys not only are just going to be watching it, you're going to be a part of it. And that's the future of it, with the way we're going to go about it. How do we incorporate the community as much as possible?
100%.
So, exciting times. We wanted to, that's basically a little bit of a look. Our first Inside Pivotal Media, which is, for those of you who don't know, that's the umbrella company that we have going on at the moment. So, it's exciting, and I guess one last thing before we finish up is thank you. We probably didn't anticipate the traction that we would get initially around this, and it's because of that traction and the support that everyone listening, you guys have been able to show us, that we can actually even think about doing something like this. And we're really passionate about this stuff, as you can know if you listen to the podcast. Like, we live and breathe it. You study this shit 12 hours a day every day. And I'm the same. I'm in it as well. I've been in it for a long time. So it's the fact that we get to do this, and this is a part of what we do.
We're so lucky, aren't we?
So lucky.
Yeah.
So lucky. And it's thanks to you guys. So now all we can do is pay it forward. We want to create the best product possible for you guys, the one that really does help you get ahead in life. And we're going to continue to do this podcast with the same mission, the same vision.
And drive as much value as we possibly can. Yeah, for 100%.
Sure. All right, guys. Inside Pivotal Media. Big thanks to Disco again. He does a great job up there as personally we'd be fucked if he wasn't here. Do you know what I mean? Like, it'd be so bad. I reckon we'd probably get 1 out of every 5 podcasts if it wasn't for Disco. So really appreciative of him, and he does a great job. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys, and more Inside Pivotals coming. But more importantly, you guys can start to get excited about what's to come inside this business and with what we're trying to do. All right, guys. Until next week. Hey, guys. So as we end today's podcast, I wanted to say a massive thank you to you. You've made it to the end, so you've tuned into the whole episode, which is something that we're extremely grateful for. If you're new to the podcast, hitting the subscribe button is really, really important to us because it really helps us out a lot. The more subscribers we get, the more, the bigger the community we build, the more that we can progress with our vision, and the more that we can start to expand and keep having, these amazing conversations. So we're really thankful. And one thing that we're also really thankful for, which, has been a big driver for me personally with the podcast, is just the messages that we get on the Instagram. I still go through the Instagram and like to have conversations with people that are engaging with us. It means so much, and it's great to hear the stories of people progressing and learning and how we're impacting you, the listener. So that's something we're really appreciative of. And I actually want to go through and actually mention some people who we had some great conversations with on our social media, these people reached out. So Alicia Pyers, it was great chatting with you, and I'm super appreciative for you reaching out to the Instagram, and it's great to hear your story and what's inspiring you and the changes that you're making. And also Jess Dinning. Jess was lucky enough to talk to you last week, and that was really, really amazing. And just the same thing goes. The conversations that we have with you guys, it's crazy how much of an impact it makes on us as a company and what we're striving to do. So a massive thank you to you two and everybody else who's reaching out and sharing and doing those things. But the two things that you can do that will help us the most is make sure that you're subscribed, and a big thanks to everyone who's leaving reviews as well, because that shows people that this is a safe space for them to come and listen and learn, and that's really the most important things to us. Really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week.